Hey guys, this is Stove here. What is up? I tell you what's up. The college football popularity for this past Saturday. My goodness, there were some games. And today we're going to start off with obviously the 4 games. Friday, September 5th, you have Boise State absolutely wallop on Eastern Washington. Solid game. Maryland beat Northern Illinois. It was a close game for a little bit. And actually, Louisville beat James Madison, so that was pretty solid. Northwestern beat Western Illinois. Illinois cannot take a break today. Anyway, Saturday we had Ohio State, my OU. My OU, my OI, my OH. Jeez. Jeez, my head. But my OHIO team has been absolutely. Obviously, it's really a complete nobody. Sometimes we face them during the non-conference games. Sometimes we do. So the good thing about it, though. Ohio State 70-0. Penn State 34 to Florida Internationals 0. Absolutely number 1 and number 2 absolutely dominating defensively and offensively. And even had a lot of good passing games. But looking into it, obviously Georgia went 28 against Austin Pay 6, I believe that's how you say. Miami, Oregon, Texas, all beating their teams pretty solidly by only allowing them with one possession. Clemson, however, very much looked iffy. The first quarter and a half, Clemson was very much not looking like the Clemson that we saw last week. And their defense gave up 16 unanswered points. But luckily, Clemson did come back, scoring, I believe, twice in the second quarter. And then flipping the script, scoring another 2 or 3 times again in the second half, being able to win against Troy 27-16. Still did not look very good on Clemson's part, though. South Carolina and South Carolina State. South Carolina also looked a little iffy at the start of it. But they ended up winning against their in-state rivals, if you want to call them that, in South Carolina State. Now, also Texas seemed a little iffy at first. San Jose did seem like they were the team wanting to show the college football league that, you know, we're here and we don't care about what Archie Manning does. Well, Archie Manning put up four or five touchdowns. I think it was 4 or 5 touchdowns, and at the same time also put up 295 passing yards as well. So you may not care who Archie Manning is at the beginning, but you surely cared about who and how he was playing by the end of the game. So it was very good seeing Archie Manning really get his confidence back from last week. Obviously, it is San Jose at the end of the day, though. Some people will still be like, well, he hasn't won against any unranked people. He hasn't won against any ranked people. And that's true. But when the first ranked team that you faced was Ohio State, that's tough. It is tough. And it also shows that Ohio State beating a random D1 or D2 college, blowing them out of the water 70-0. It just shows that, like, Ohio State is really wanting to show that they're the best in the entirety of college football. I mean, I think like Oregon, they did pretty well, 69-3, extremely well. So you do have like some solid Big Ten games that if you love to see your team score, that was pretty much it. Illinois versus Duke. At first I thought it would have been a little close, but Illinois, like I said, Big Ten absolutely scored on Duke over and over and over again. Even put up 334 passing yards on them. So it was pretty solid. Was liking to see that. Now, we're going to get to some of the games that I even said that were going to really be a great game. One of them being Arizona State versus Mississippi. That was a close game. Unfortunately, Arizona State ended up losing that game against Mississippi, but I also did say how Mississippi State was the type of team, especially with their defense, was going to keep them into this game. I mean, it wasn't necessarily really a surprise whenever you see their scoreboard and it's like, oh wow, I mean, both of these two are still pretty much in this game, and was able to climb back. Blake Shapen even putting up 279 passing yards. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful to see both of those two teams continuously work. And also, unfortunately, Sam Levitt didn't exactly have the best game he could have, but still, it was a very good game from both of them. You'll probably see both of these two in the top 25 for sure by the end of the season. South Florida versus Florida. This was a game, as a fan and as an underdog rooter, I loved the fact that as I was at work and I seen the score on this team, the score still being as close as it was field goal to field goal. It was a touchdown to a touchdown. These two teams got super close. But like I said before, you shouldn't count out, and I'm going to keep on saying like I said before, like the phrase like I said before, because if you guys really want to let me know what I did say and what I didn't say, you could always leave a comment. It would be great. And if you guys seen that I did basically say pretty much what I'm saying right now, you guys leave a like on this video and even maybe that video. It's really just up to you. But South Florida beating ranked 13th Florida 18-16. Now I will be wanting to talk about South Florida versus Miami, Florida. Granted, I do think Miami, Florida has a lot better defense, even has a lot better of an offense. So you could see South Florida winning against Florida and maybe even coming out to being top 25, like 25, 24 maybe, with the way that they were able to beat Boise State, who was ranked 25th, be able to beat Florida by a field goal, pretty much, because that's how it ended. Who was ranked number 13th, and now they're going up against number 5 Miami, Florida. Jeez, like it's gonna be interesting to see, but South Florida, man, it's truly an underdog story. And even if they don't win against Miami University, they at least, even if they lose against Miami University. They go in and face their conference teams. If they play anything like how they've been playing against their conference, South Florida will probably end up winning the conference. I mean, I don't know how many times analysts even said right after the games, they're like, oh man, the South Florida looks like they could definitely win the conference this year. Well, yeah, because they just beat two ranked teams. Now, granted, I from the what I remember, Boise State was ranked 25th, but I think some analysts were like, "Oh, South Florida broke the losing streak record of facing unranked teams, and now they even broke the losing streak of losing against ranked teams." And I'm like, well, still, I mean, I think it's still pretty impressive. Winning against a team like Boise State, winning against a team like Florida, I generally think you're looking at South Florida being the next 25 or 24 team, and some of these teams even jumping up ahead of these other two teams. But anyway, I was so excited seeing Byron Brown and and Singleton putting up some numbers, and they even did somewhat well with the rushing yards, but obviously Florida had that front seven that was just gonna be whatever. But Florida, in my opinion, did have a defensive breakdown, especially since their defense was getting penalized for stuff that shouldn't have gotten penalized for. The spit in the face. What are you, Jalen Carter on the Eagles? No. Just because you're probably as big as them, maybe even as strong as them, does not get you to be spitting on the opposing South Florida team. But still, even without that penalty alone, the way South Florida was getting more and more confident through the whole game, it just showed that South Florida deserved to win that game more than Florida did. Speaking of Florida teams, Florida State absolutely obliterates East Texas A&M 77-3. Beautiful game. Oklahoma and Michigan, also a very, very beautiful game. Both teams worked pretty good. I do have to say that Michigan could have done a lot better on offense, but Oklahoma was able to pressure Bryce Underwood, who as a freshman is still learning a lot in college. But that Oklahoma defense did exactly what I thought that they could do, and Oklahoma, like I said, was able to pressure the young freshman QB and was even able to contain the QB. Even when he scrambled, he wasn't able to get very much further than a few 2 or 3 yards. So it was beautiful defense by Oklahoma for sure, absolutely. And the fact that their offense even, gaining that confidence from the Oklahoma defense, Oklahoma's offense was able to also get into the end zone a few times and was able to keep their lead regardless of what Michigan tried to switch up during halftime or not. But Oklahoma, solid team, looked like a solid team to me. Michigan definitely needs to work a little bit better on that offense. Iowa State versus Iowa, very close game. And with me talking about the kickers a few days ago, it ended up going to the kickers. There wasn't really that many yards going to the quarterbacks or running backs. It was specifically a kickers game, 16-13. I think there was 2 touchdowns between the two of them, but other than that, the kickers of Iowa State and Iowa were able to get solid to kick with absolute certainty. I don't think either one of them missed the times that they were able to get those kicks. So both of those two teams have some solid kickers. I would not be surprised if both of them get drafted and they kick even better and maybe even a little bit further in the NFL whenever they get there. Obviously, Iowa State's kicker, he's a sophomore right now, so I'm not really expecting him to go into the draft this year or even next year. But both of the two kickers, spectacular performances by them, was able to come down. Iowa State was able to come down to a perfect good field position and was able to finish the job with another field goal. Then you got, more than likely, the game of the weekend, the game of the week for college football, which was SMU versus Baylor. Both of them looked like absolute powerhouses. So many yards were being passed, so many yards were being rushed. It was absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And I am proud for both of these two squads because both of them looked like they could have faced anybody and scored. Now, their defenses also had some solid sacks here and there. Was able to really be back and forth, and the fact that they also got to 2 overtimes with Baylor scoring, getting a field goal in the second overtime, sorry. That is just seriously incredible. Props to both of them. I do hope we see more out of those two. Like the same effort, same dominance on offense. Both of these guys, wow. I wouldn't be surprised if both of these two teams, if they keep this going, I wouldn't be surprised if both of those two teams end with 8+ wins this season for sure. It would be tough for SMU just because of ACC and Baylor being on the Big 12, I think. But still, I would not be surprised if they made it even more difficult for their in-conference teams. Utah winning against, Texas A&M winning against Utah. Ole Miss and Kentucky even playing pretty well. Defense was able to shorten the points up a bit, so it wasn't exactly like the SMU and Baylor game, but it was still a good back and forth between offense and defensive squads. But Ole Miss, wanting to keep their ranking, was able to beat Kentucky. Solid performance by them. And Alabama, goodness gracious. And I'm pretty sure Alabama was even able to play their backups, because there's no way Ty Simpson would have had 226 passing yards with just 73 points on the scoreboard. Not even letting UL Monroe score a single point. They wanted to make a statement. And like I said before, in my little small talk segment about this game, they want to make this statement to show that even though they lost against Florida State, they're not going to take any single bit of criticism whenever it comes to the subject of, oh, Alabama is washed, Alabama's era is over. You're talking to a lot of powerful kids, a lot of young adults with talents, and even some coaching staff. One of the best coaching staff, possibly in college football, and they didn't take that too kindly, especially not even having their first team, or maybe not even in their second team, but their third team as well, beating up on Monroe. So just saying, be careful with how you continue to use your words whenever it comes to talking about Alabama. Tennessee puts up 72 points as well against East Tennessee State. Indiana crushes Kennesaw State, no surprise there. Texas Tech beats Kent State by good margin. Same with Utah with Cal Podley. Minnesota actually showing up and showing out against Northeastern State, 66-0. The Virginia and North Carolina game was actually pretty solid, 35-31. North Carolina State ending up winning that game. Pittsburgh versus Central Michigan, solid win for Pittsburgh. Syracuse and Kentucky even going to an overtime with Steve Angeli, 417 passing yards. That's pretty solid. And I'm guessing that was from Syracuse. I'm guessing that's Syracuse's quarterback. But pretty solid there. You had a back and forth with Jacksonville State and Liberty. Pretty solid. Temple actually destroying Howard University. New Mexico beating Iowa State. Missouri beating Kansas by good back and forth there. Fresno State actually beating Oregon State, and Georgia Tech beating Garden Webb. Nice, solid games here. Colorado had a solid game against Delaware. In my opinion, they could have scored a lot more against Delaware, but with Delaware, I think this is like their first season. I think, this was like their first season with D1, so it's all right. And yeah, just the rest of these were pretty solid. Ohio University ends up beating West Virginia by 7 points. That is something beautiful to see. Wisconsin beating Middle Tennessee. I mean, that's great. That is very great. Arkansas beating Arkansas State by a large margin as well. And yeah, there's not really much to say. Missouri State actually beating Marshall by 1 point. Pretty close game there. Old Dominion doing their thing. East Carolina doing their thing. Florida Atlantic doing their thing. So a lot of Florida success stories here. North Carolina beating Charlotte by 17 points. Army beating Kansas State by 3 points. So Kansas State, man, oh man, they could not catch a break. But Army putting it on them there. Houston putting it on Rice University. UCF, absolute domination. Nebraska, who's unranked but had a very solid 68-0 game against Akron. Vanderbilt coming away with the win against Virginia Tech. It was a good back and forth. Both defenses had solid games, but whatever happened between the middle to end of quarter number 3 and the beginning of quarter number 4, Vandy just absolutely played lights out after that. So it's good to see that. You even had two overtimes with the Michigan State and Boston College game. and Michigan State winning by 2 points. USC dominating Georgia Southern. Solid games here. Good back and forths. Some just absolutely dominated, like Washington dominating UC Davis. Hawaii getting a solid 17 lead margin win against Sam Houston. That's pretty good. And even BYU beating Stanford. Not even close. Man, just remember all those Stanford fans that thought that Stanford was going to be a dynasty of some sort back in those days. But yeah, Washington State beating San Diego State, so that's a solid win there. So yeah, even Arizona 48-3 against Weber State. Some of these, like I said, some of these freaking teams, you don't necessarily really recognize whether they're Division II teams or they're very, very low Division I teams. It's still good to see so many teams looking like they could blow out other teams. They could have even greater matchups when going later and later into the season. All I gotta say is that with the games that I was calling during the preview of all of these games before they played, I think the fact that those games ended up the way that they did, I'm very proud of. Not only, it may be my ego or something, but I'm very proud of the picks that I made, but I'm also very proud of all of these teams that were able to show that, just because we're not ranked doesn't mean we still can't blow out some of these teams, or just because we're not ranked doesn't mean you guys should be looking at us like we're chopped liver and we're going to end up getting beat with nothing to show for it. So I'm very proud of all those teams that were able to do that, and props to them. Props to some of these teams that beat ranked opponents. Props to some of these teams that weren't ranked but still were able to have some solid games against other non-ranked opponents. Really shows that there's more to just college football than the top 25, or for some people, the top 10 that you'll see in the college football league. So anyway, you guys, if you guys like that review of the scores, please leave a like, please leave a comment, please subscribe if you want to follow for more content like this, or content like NFL sports, which by the time I'm recording this is about 35 minutes away from starting our very first week of college. Our very first week of NFL football. Anyway, you guys, I will see you guys later. You guys have a good one. Peace.